We're going to have more on this story through the evening here on BBC News. We'll keep a close eye on any developments there. We seem to be, in fact, near the cenotaph, if I'm correct, based on these images. Yes, this is very close to the cenotaph, so we'll keep an eye on the situation there and, of course, bring you the latest on all the main stories of the day, including all developments related to the Middle East. So do stay with us here on BBC News.
Hello, I'm Steve Lai, and you're watching The Context on BBC News.
We have hit out at Mohsen, and we will continue doing so against anyone who murders our citizens and hurts our country. Then his days are numbered.
We do know that after the October 7th attacks, which were led by Hamas, the Israeli government had said that they were going to target all of the Hamas leadership, including the political leadership.
This is a massive gamble by the Israelis. Will this be the spark that tips the region into the all-out war that so many people fear, with catastrophic consequences?
Tension tonight in the Middle East as the region waits to see what happens next following the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas. Iran has vowed to avenge his death, blaming Israel. As we wait to see how Hamas will respond, what will his death mean for the ongoing ceasefire talks? We'll hear from a former IDF spokesperson as well as a veteran Middle East negotiator. The killing of Ismail Haniyeh came just hours after the IDF hit back at Hezbollah with a targeted drone strike on a senior commander in southern Beirut. We'll also look at the reaction to that in Lebanon, with concerns growing of a wider regional conflict. First, though, the latest to BBC News here, and the BBC says it is shocked by what it calls the abhorrent behaviour of former presenter Hugh Edwards, who has pleaded guilty to charges of making child abuse images. The images were sent to him by a man police say is a convicted paedophile. Police officers have been given more time to continue questioning a 17-year-old boy. He's been arrested in connection with the killings of 3 girls at a summer holiday dance class in Southport. And since those attacks, demonstrators believed to be from a far-right group threw bricks and damaged a mosque in violence that injured dozens of officers. 4 arrests have been made. Police say there will be more. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country has challenging days ahead, but is prepared for all scenarios, following the killing of senior leaders of 2 Iranian-backed groups. Mr. Netanyahu said Israel had dealt what he describes as a crushing blow to its enemies through the attack that killed the Hezbollah leader in Lebanon. That death and the killing of a political leader in Hamas in Tehran are driving fears of an escalation of the conflict. Now, with me to help us understand the significance of these events, I'm joined by the BBC's chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet. Lise, great to have you on with us to help us understand what's been going on in the last 24 hours. But let's start with that address from Mr. Netanyahu. What's the main thing to understand about what he said?
What Israel does.
And of course, we don't know who will be in the White House
exactly.
come November.
That might also be part
factor.
of the timing. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Lise, for helping us understand that better. BBC's chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet. Now let's get the perspective from Israel and speak to Jonathan Conricus, a former IDF spokesperson and now a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, focused on the Middle East. Jonathan, thank you for speaking to me. Firstly, just to get an understanding of where you think Israel is given the last 24 hours, is Israel willing to escalate this conflict and bring it face to face with Iran?
Whether directly or indirectly, how that would develop.
Yeah, and we'll have to keep a close eye on how that does develop. Thank you very much. Hussein Hariri, their former Egyptian assistant foreign minister. Now do stay with us right here on BBC News. Hello, I'm Steve Lyon. You're watching The Context on BBC News. Now, the BBC says it is shocked by what it calls the abhorrent behaviour of former presenter Huw Edwards, who has pleaded guilty to charges of making indecent images of children. Sport, and for a full roundup from the BBC Sports Centre, here's Gavin.
Yes, thanks very much indeed, Steve. We'll head straight to the Olympics, where the medals continue at the La Défense Arena, home to the swimming. The golden boy and a home favourite, Léon Marchand, struck again, this time with an Olympic record. And there we go. That is all the sport from us for now, Steve. We'll have more later on. See you then.
Thanks very much, Gavin. Now, Huw Edwards, once the BBC's most senior news presenter, has pleaded guilty to having images showing child sex abuse after exchanging messages with a convicted paedophile on WhatsApp. At Westminster Magistrates Court, he admitted having 41 indecent images of children which had been sent to him by another man on WhatsApp. They included 7 Category A images, the most serious classification. Until last year, Edwards was one of the main presenters on BBC One's News at 10 and often fronted coverage of major national events, including the death of Queen Elizabeth II. He was arrested in November and charged last month. He will be sentenced on the 16th of September, and a probation report is being compiled. Now, flares have been thrown towards the gates of Downing Street. That happened earlier as well, and you can see there a lady being taken away after being restrained by police. And this is a story we will be following here on The Context. We'll have a panel discussion on it as well in the hour ahead and see how this story develops. Now, around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. And let's turn now to Venezuela and the ongoing protests following the disputed presidential election. Thousands have taken to the streets in recent days, clashing with riot police in the capital of Caracas. Hundreds have been arrested, at least 11 people have died, and dozens have been injured. Police have surrounded the Argentine embassy, where 6 opposition figures are sheltering. International pressure has mounted on Venezuela's President Maduro to release proof of his election victory.
Current fires that are happening, and this is the worst year we've had in the past 2 years. I mean,
yeah,
so this past few years weren't as bad.
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you so much for speaking to us. Stephanie Norcio, the small business owner in California. Hello, I'm Steve Lyon. You're watching The Context on BBC News.
We have hit out at Muhsin, and we will continue doing so against anyone who murders our citizens and hurts our country. Then his days are numbered.
What Israel has done is to fight back and to send a rather strong message to Iran and its 2 most important proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas.
This is a massive gamble by the Israelis. Will this be the spark that tips the region into the all-out war that so many people fear, with catastrophic consequences?
Joining me tonight are Anna Gross, political correspondent at the Financial Times, and Bhaskar Sankara, political journalist and president of The Nation magazine. First, the latest BBC News. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel has delivered crushing blows to all its enemies in recent days. Mr. Netanyahu's televised address was his first public statement since the political leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated in Tehran. Hours earlier, a senior Hezbollah commander was killed in Beirut. Now, protesters have attacked police outside Downing Street in central London, throwing cans and glass bottles at officers in riot gear. The protest is being held after the stabbings in Southport on Monday, when 3 young girls were killed. Detectives investigating the attack have been granted more time to question a 17-year-old boy. And the BBC says it is shocked by what it calls the abhorrent behaviour of former presenter Hugh Edwards, who's pleaded guilty to charges of images containing child sex abuse. The images were sent to him by a man police say is a convicted paedophile. And a respected NGO, which was invited by Venezuela to monitor Sunday's presidential poll, has said the election cannot be considered democratic. And there have been protests across the country since President Nicolas Maduro was declared the winner on Monday. The result has been disputed by the opposition, which says its candidate won by a wide margin. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country has challenging days ahead, but is prepared for all scenarios. That's following the killing of senior leaders of two Iranian-backed groups. Mr. Netanyahu said Israel had dealt what he described as a crushing blow to its enemies through the attack that killed the Hezbollah leader in Lebanon. That death and the killing of the political leader of Hamas in Tehran are driving fears of an escalation of the conflict. Yes, and if they can feel inclusive as well, perhaps that will also calm tensions as well. Thanks, guys. Do stay with us. We'll have more. I just want to bring you pictures live back to London, where we can see things are looking quite a bit calmer there. We can see some people being led away. And there you can see some people being led away by police. Live images there for the protests in London, where the march appears to be dispersing relatively calmly. Quite a different picture from what we saw last night in Southport. Now we'll be following this story, and we'll have more conversation with our guests, Anna and Bhaskar, in just a few moments. Do stay with us right here on BBC News. Hello, I'm Steve Lyon. You're watching The Context on BBC News. Kamala Harris heads to Texas in a few hours after being confirmed that she's the only Democratic candidate in the race for the White House. We'll dive into US politics with our panel in just a bit. First, though, experts say there's more hope than ever before that nearly half of dementia cases could be prevented or delayed. Researchers have identified two new risk factors: high or bad cholesterol from the age of about 40, which they say accounts for an estimated 7% of cases, while another 2% of cases are attributable to untreated vision loss in later life. The researchers say addressing these factors, as well as a number of others, gives people the best chance of reducing the chances of developing dementia, even if they have a high genetic risk. All right, thanks very much for that, Anna and Bhaskar. Do stay with us around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. And now it's time for the panel. Okay, Anna and Bhaskar, great to have you with us. Time for you to tell us the stories that have gotten your attention today. And I'll come to you first. What's on your mind? Guys, thank you so much for spending your time with me this hour and talking about a whole gamut of subjects. It's been really good to be able to speak to you and get your thoughts on all of them. We'll be especially looking out for what happens in Israel and in the region as well. It's been very volatile. I want to thank my guests there, Anna Gross, political correspondent at the Financial Times, and Bhaskar Sankara, political journalist and the president of The Nation magazine. And also, I'd like to thank you for joining me here on The Context. Do stay with us right here on BBC News. There's plenty more to come. Bye for now.
Hello there, this is your updates from the BBC Sports Centre. It's been another successful day for Team GB at the Paris Olympics with 5 more medals, 2 of them gold, including one for Alex Yee in the men's triathlon. And you can keep up to date with everything Olympics related, as well as the rest of the day's sports news on the BBC Sport website. But that is all the sport from us for now.
Hello there. Temperatures reached 29, 30 degrees across southern parts.